In the headlines, gunmen invade Ejulu in Kogi State. Many feared killed. Reinstated Kano Anti-Graft chairman vows to reopen probe against Ganduje. Court to hear Alison Maduike's asset forfeiture suit against the EFCC on October 23rd. And on the foreign scene, Uganda military rescues 3 of 6 students abducted by rebels. Hello there, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us on Trust News Update. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. We begin the update in Kogi State, where unidentified gunmen have reportedly invaded Ejulu town in Ifo local government area of the state, shooting and killing people. Report from the area says the attack started at around 3 a.m. on Thursday, and an Okada rider, including a woman identified as Aziz and wife of a youth leader, Okopi, respectively, have been confirmed dead. The Okada rider was reportedly hit by a stray bullet, while the woman was said to be out about looking for her husband when she was gunned down. Also, a family house has been razed by the assailants. The security advisor to the governor, Jerry Omadara, has confirmed the incident in an interview with Daily Trust, saying he's yet to get the details of the incident. The State Police Command's Public Relations Officer, SP William Aya, was not available for comment. To Plateau State now, where Governor Caleb Mutfwang has reiterated his government's commitment to the safety of lives and property of the citizens of Plateau State. The governor disclosed this on Wednesday in Jos while swearing in 4 permanent secretaries and 1 special advisor on security matters. This event was held at the government house in Jos. The assurance of the governor came on the heels of the 2 separate attacks in Boi and Chisu district of Mangu local government area, which left 5 persons dead, and another in Sambok communities in Riom, where 6 vigilantes were gunned down. Governor Mutfwang says the measures are being taken to tackle the menace, adding that his fight against crime and criminality in Plateau State is not targeting any religious or ethnic group.
You know that before I was sworn in, Mangu local government and parts of the local government had come under severe attacks. In Mangu alone, we buried over 150 people. As I'm talking to you, probably about 16 to 20 villages have almost been cleaned up. And the attacks have continued unabated. We have taken some steps, we have put some measures in place, but I'd like to promise Plateau people that we are not fighting for any tribe or any religion. Those of you who are from Wase and Kanam, you know that in the last 2-3 years, those local governments have been under siege by bandits. In fact, we can call them terrorists. And I want to salute the security agencies, particularly the Department of State Security, who have battled those bandits to almost a halt at the moment.
Elsewhere, trouble is brewing between farmers and herders over a grazing reserve in Yanghono village area of Keita local government area in Katsina State. According to reports, the disagreement started when Keita local government split and allocated a grazing reserve meant for herders to some farmers in the community. Abdullahi Yamadi visited the area and files in this report.
This entire area was said to have been a grazing reserve for herders centuries ago, but in 2020, Keita local authorities split and allocated it to farmers for agricultural purposes. This does not go down well with the over 1,500 herders of the area who protested what they described as insensitivity and lack of concern to their plight. According to them, this is happening even as there is an agreement between the herders and the local authorities here. The agreement was that the herders will allow the farmers to cultivate the forest reserve for 3 years, which elapsed in 2023. Keita local government splits all this place, which before serves as grazing reserve, and also serve as our only cattle route. There is an agreement signed by all stakeholders, including traditional rulers and members of Miyetti Allah, that farmers will no longer cultivate this place, but it was violated. It is because of this violation of agreements some of the suspected farmers poisoned our cows, and up till today, the local authorities are adamant about it. Is it because we are law-abiding? Moreover, the herders alleged that about 6 days ago, some suspected farmers poisoned a stream water within the forest reserve. 19 of their cows drank from the water and died in the process. As a farmer, I am not aware of any cow that was poisoned here, and I paid 4,000 naira only into the coffers of Kete local government and obtained this portion of land, and many of us, especially Fadama farmers, were allocated the land 3 years ago. Though some arrests were made, Kete local authority is saying the herders have no claim to make, as they have more than enough grazer reserves in the area beside the ones depleted and allocated to the farmers.
It's not grazing reserve. The area is divided into two. There's area at the back and area in the front. The farmers asked for that area in the front, and the area at the back was left to the Fulani people.
At the height of insecurity in the state, many Katsina residents are saying authorities need to wade into the issue immediately to prevent possible breakdown of law and order. Abdullahi Izuma Yamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Elsewhere, the rising cases of out-of-school children, which has a direct correlation with herders and farmers' crisis in Benue State, has become a source of concern for many residents of the state. This, residents say, has caused considerable damage to the socio-economic and political life of the people, especially the children who, instead of being in school, have taken to the streets in search of food. Jimmy Azande reports.
The future of some Benue kids is bleak, no thanks to the farmer herders crisis that has displaced over 1 million villagers from their ancestral homes. Makurdi residents are worried that with this development, if not checked, will negatively impact the entire state in no distant future.
Most of the children, they are not attending schools. The makeshift schools that have been opened, they are not very standard. And then most people have decided to go and live with others. If you pay careful attention, you can see that for a long time now, there has been a trend. People who have been displaced going around Makurdi town, begging for people to adopt their children so that at least they can feed. So they are no longer talking about education, it's how to feed, where to find shelter and find food that could sustain their life.
They want the government to establish more schools in a bid to resettle the war victims to their ancestral communities.
Community structures that are destroyed by virtue of the attacks, if you put them back, one, road networks. When they are destroyed, farmers cannot take their produce to the markets. Places of worship, when they are destroyed, you cannot have people coming together again. Educational centers, when they are destroyed, people cannot go to school again. There are some children that have been in the camps all their life. They were born in the camps, they are still in the camps till today. There's no education for them. We know the kind of future we are preparing to tolerate such a situation. The future is bleak.
Governor Alia administration has been urged to revisit the open grazing prohibition and ranches establishment law that became a bone of contention and strengthened some for the overall good of the parties involved.
It's a good law that seeks to establish a ranching system. But you and I know that many years while we were growing up, people practiced ranching. People who had cattle would keep them in a place and allow them to go out at certain times and come back. That was elements of ranching. It's the best model. Globally, everybody accepts that that's the right thing to do. So that law has the best model, a good law, but it needed to be perceived as more friendly. To use the technical expression, it needed to be conflict sensitive. And the conflict sensitivity elements of the law was missing.
Hyacinth Alia, in his campaign manifesto, promised to return the internally displaced persons to their homes in record time. Either way, it is the desire of the surviving victims to return to where they can venture into agriculture and make their lives better.
In Kano, Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf and the chairman of the Public Complaints and Anti-Corruption Commission, Mohammed Mohui, said that they are going to prosecute former Governor Abdullahi Ganduje over some controversial videos. This was disclosed by Magaji in a statement while reinstating that he is allowed, while being reinstated rather, by the Abba administration to complete his tenure. Recall that the Kano State House of Assembly in 2021 asked the anti-corruption boss to step aside for a month after he kicked against the posting of an accountant to the agency from the Office of the Accountant General of Kano State. The statement also notes that the anti-corruption boss's reinstatement with immediate effect and is in compliance with a court order. Meanwhile, the newly reinstated chairman has pledged to reopen the investigation against former Governor Abdullahi Umar Ganduje on some controversial videos. A member of the Kano State House of Assembly, Salisu Ibrahim, wants other legislators in the State Assembly to focus on legislation that will change the fortune of the state. The member, who is representing Dogwa local government area, says members, irrespective of their party differences, will ensure meaningful legislation in areas of education, health, and employment, among others, in the areas of concern to the people of Kano. Salisu was first elected on the platform of the All Nigeria People's Party, from where he moved to the All Progressives Congress, APC.
Political coloration apart, I believe all of us are joined by the passion for the development of our people, and we don't have any state to call our own but Kano. So definitely I am optimistic that we are going to work together and we are going to work in line with the yearnings and aspirations of our electorate, irrespective of political differences. When you talk of focus generally, I think as politicians, more especially at the State Assembly, where we are very close to the electorate, the 2023 electioneering campaign has shown us real issues or real problems that are the problems that are facing our society. Generally, when you talk of issue of unemployment and lack of quality of education and other, like health facilities and others, these three challenges I feel should be in the mind of most of us.
In other news, a federal high court in Abuja has fixed October 23rd to hear a suit filed by former Minister of Petroleum Resources, Dezani Alison Madueke, challenging the order obtained by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission for final forfeiture of her seized assets. Justice Iyang Ekwo fixed the date after her counsel Benson Igbainoy and EFCC's counsel regularized their processes in the suit. The auctioning exercise conducted on the seized assets believed to include Dezani's property started on January 9th. She was alleged to have escaped to the United Kingdom and remained there after her exit from public office as the Minister of Petroleum, an office she held between 2010 and 2015 under the administration of former President Goodluck Jonathan. But the ex-minister in her suit sought an order extending the time within which to seek leave to apply to the court for an order to set aside the EFCC's public notice issued to conduct the public sale of her properties. She says that she was not given fair hearing in all the proceedings leading to the orders. Now, residents in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa State capital, have called on the state and federal governments to come to their aid after a two-day downpour rendered communities homeless. While appealing for help, they express worry that if only 2 days of rainfall can wreak such havoc, they wonder what will be their fate when the rainy season sets in proper. Speaking to our correspondent, a resident and a business owner in Azikoro town in Yenagoa metropolis, Mr. Prayer Senator, who narrates the difficulties they experience in the area, says they almost lost a child to the flood. They call for immediate government intervention to not just ameliorate their plight, but to ensure that their belongings are not swept away in the course of the rainy season. They also want the state government to clear water canals and clean up the drainages.
This morning, we actually had a child drown around the area. She just fell inside the flood. And if it was so deep, we'll have lost a child around here. Customers does not have access to my business.
No be say this thing happen. Not the rain. I cause water.
Since last week, rain dey fall for the area. Some houses then flood they enter, the water they enter, they disturb them. Now the thing just worry me. Even my house, the more save the water they enter, small. Now the thing they worry me. Now I make see today make I come out the thing out here just to do the work.
You're watching Trust News Update. Coming up after the break, we take a look at Generation Z and the digital distractions. Details coming up ahead after the break. Welcome back to Trust News Update. Here's a recap of our top stories at this hour. Gunmen have invaded Ejulu community in Kogi State, where many are feared killed. Reinstated Kano Anti-Graft chairman vows to reopen probe against former Governor Ganduje. Now, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Richard Montgomery, says the big economic decisions being taken by the Tinubu administration are being noticed around the world and will create a much-needed investment environment in the country. He spoke after meeting with Vice President Kashim Shettima on Wednesday. Up for discussions were talks on home affairs and justice, people-to-people links, and a number of issues which could improve the relationship between Nigeria and Great Britain in the future. Kende Amudu reports.
This meeting between Vice President Kashim Shettima and the British High Commissioner is significant because it demonstrates the reaction of other countries to the early steps that have been taken by the new government. Indeed, the British High Commissioner is putting it on record that his government has taken notice.
As I discussed with His Excellency, the big economic decisions being taken by this government are really important and they're being noticed around the world. the removal of subsidy, the exchange rate reform, all of that creates a much better investment environment. And I was in London last week. I was briefing my ministers, but I was also talking to British business in the finance, banking, investment sectors. And they are responding very positively to these first decisions.
Of course, these decisions have resulted in some hardship in Nigeria, a fact that the British High Commissioner acknowledges.
We know that there are tough times that are going on at the moment, inflation and unemployment. And the Vice President and I also touched on some of the measures that might be possible to cushion the blow of some of these economic pressures. But I think the big issue is that these reforms help put Nigeria on a higher growth path. They will attract more investment.
It is an opportunity to get the British government's perspective on recent restrictions on Nigerian students bringing their dependents to the UK.
That's partly because not just from Nigeria, but from many parts of the world, many more students are trying to bring their dependents with them. And I think that there are two issues here. The first is it's not always possible to find the housing and services to meet all the needs of all our existing student population. And secondly, I think reasonable people would accept that we have to manage our visitor numbers and that we have to manage migration in and out of the UK, just as the Nigerian government does for your own borders.
The British government is commending the Nigerian government's economic policies, which it believes will put the country on the right path of growth. Of course, it is speaking from the viewpoint of its national interest, which means the Nigerian government must find a balance that will take into consideration the interest of its people. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amudu, Trust TV News.
Now, parents are being called upon to closely monitor the activities of their wards in order to create a chance of a better future for them. Trust TV's Zainab Garay speaks to a cross-section of FCT residents on the need to give Gen Z a proper orientation in the face of the technological distractions that have become a cultural part of the 21st century. Her report.
Generation Zero, popularly known as Gen Z, is broadly defined as the 72 million people born between 1997 and 2012. It is a stage of growth that requires close monitoring of infants by parents. This generation is often believed to be more upwardly mobile in line with the technological advancements of the Jet Age. This makes them inclined to independent-mindedness, individual creativity, and a sense of exploration that the older generation, especially parents, find disturbing. Hence, they want the Gen Zs to adopt norms and values that will better their lot.
Everything you see yourself doing boils down to upbringing. When you talk about the former generation, their upbringing is so unique that they imbibe in them the mystery behind culture. And culture is all about respect and way of life. But nowadays, what the parents see themselves doing, we don't call it culture. They pet children into destruction.
It's quite different now, and different not just not in a negative way, I could say. It's in a positive way. I think we are evolving. You know, some of the things that used to look sensible in the past, all of a sudden doesn't make sense anymore. And it's not because people are abandoning their culture. I think we are just evolving and getting new cultures as.
Some Nigerians on the streets of Abuja said the Gen Zero need to be taught simple etiquette, such as how to eat, dress, and live respectable lives.
Well, I think it has to do with the new trend of what we are having in the society. Like I do tell my people, my staff in the office, this phone that we have is creating a lot of immorality, disrespect to the elders. You say children of nowadays, when we are growing up, we bend down to greet our elders. But now they shake hands. Some of them will not even greet you. And they expect so much from you. As a daddy, as your boss, they don't give you in return. So what do you expect? The value will be degenerating down.
Modernization has changed everything. Like the old generation now, we now got some advice from internet. We seem to imitate what we see online. Like in the old generation, people then focus on what the parents teach them. But now we get if you go online now, you start seeing different things, so you want to imitate.
They also want Gen Zero to learn from an early stage and develop greater appreciation for diversity while finding unique identities for themselves in a world that is constantly forcing people to live lives that do not reflect their true selves. Zainab Karai, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Now, on the international scene, the Ugandan military has rescued 3 of the 6 students who were kidnapped by rebel fighters when they stormed a school in the west of the country last week and massacred 42 people, mostly young students. Confirming the development, the military spokesperson Felix Kulaigi says a woman with 2 children who had been kidnapped outside the school was also rescued, together with her children, while 2 fighters were killed and 2 guns have been recovered. On Friday night, fighters from the Allied Democratic Forces, a group linked to ISIS, stormed the Lubirira Secondary School in Pondwe on Uganda's border with the Democratic Republic of Congo. The rebels entered a boys' dormitory, shot at the children and set the building ablaze, incinerating nearly everyone in the building. They entered a girls' dormitory and killed them with machetes. The attack was one of the most horrific attacks in Uganda in decades. And in sports, Bendel Insurance claimed their 3rd Federation Cup trophy as striker Imade's first half penalty lifted the Benin Arsenal over Enugu Rangers in the men's final at the Stephen Keshi Stadium. The effort proved sufficient enough to hand Monday Odige's side the cup and a place in the next season CAF Confederation Cup. Meanwhile, Bielsa Queens retained the women's trophy after a 4-2 penalty shootout over Rivers Angels after the game ended goalless in regulation time. Well, that's it. You're up to date with the latest news stories at this hour. Don't forget to follow us across our social media platforms and enjoy our YouTube live stream. My name is Abdullah Ahmed. Thank you for your time.